evening, everyone. Um, so today we will be touching on, what manipulation is in addiction, because it is quite a common thing that, a loved one in addiction, they might portray or, come across as being manipulative. And unfortunately, it is, one of the characteristics that, happens in active addiction. um, and it's natural for people in relationships to have problems as the relationship grows. This could be a relationship between a child, it could be a life partner, it could be a friend, and also it could be um, someone that is in one of your loved ones. Sometimes these problems stem from emotions or greed, uh, and greed as well. It's or rather, what we call, being self-centered or being inconsiderate. All that would come, with addiction. It is one of the most common things. So one type of a problem that can surface in any type of relationship is manipulation. So in this presentation, we believe that maybe one can learn the science of manipulation and what to do if it happens in your relationship. And we do believe that, this is something that maybe you might have experienced in your relationship with your loved one, and actually not get to a point where you understand if this is manipulation, or to identify that, I think, this relationship that I'm having with this person, we might be in a position where, it's quite of manipulative, because it is quite a common thing whereby, people will lie, cheat, deceive, just to, get to their fix or to protect their addiction for that matter. And if you are, it's difficult for one to, be able to pick it up, because you are part of that relationship. They still, love, they still care, and all that. With all that, it's difficult for one to pinpoint that, this relationship might be, manipulated. um, because at time you would want to protect your loved one, you would want to still show up and be there, and be present in their lives. So we just have to break down some of, what manipulation is. um, so manipulation is the exercise of harmful influence over others. uh, People manipulate others, attack their mental and emotional sides to get what they want. And this explains it beautifully, that, manipulation is not only a physical thing whereby, a loved one would ask for money, or, um, just trying to get something out of you, like, just to get their way with their addiction. So it can even get to be affecting you mentally or emotionally. Um, so the person doing the manipulating, in this instant, it could be, the loved one or life partner that is in active addiction, referred in here the manipulator as the manipulator. Um, they seek to create an imbalance of power. They take advantage of you to get power, control, benefits, and or privileges. So with addiction, with the disease of addiction, control is the biggest thing, because in this instant, um, they want to control their emotions, they want to control how others perceive them, and they just want to live life based on their terms, without having to face consequences, without having to, be a healthy person, in the relationship. So it, it includes any attempt to sway someone's emotions to get them feel or act a certain way. So there's just a lot that, the manipulator would use, to, get sort of to make you be where they want. It could be emotionally or mentally, because that by doing so, they get a sense of power, they get a sense of control, to get what they want. There's a saying that we have in recovery that, I want what I want when I want it. So they don't use logical reasoning to get what they want. So an example for that would be, because addiction, it's also about, this artificial gratification, whereby they believe that once they've, had their alcohol, once they've had their drugs, there's sense of reward from the brain, because that's how the brain works. But unfortunately, with addiction, it is, unhealthy. It is damaging. It gets to affect even the, people that are around. Sorry, people that are around the addicted person. Um, so it's not something that will just affect, uh, you know, the two people that are in the relationship. In this instant, the addict and, the mother, the dad, or just someone who's in that sort of relationship. Um, so manipulators have common tricks they will use to make you feel irrational and more likely to give in to their requests. So, because, people with the disease of addiction, they're not stupid people, they're not failures, they are not all of that. They are quite, um, that are just sick. And with them, being in addiction, they get to develop, common tricks that they will use to their own advantage. They would use tricks that, you might, after the conversation, you might, after, just hold on to, the guilt, thinking that maybe, I could have assisted in that way, because that's where they get a sense of power, because they've swayed you to this, emotional, state, so that, it's easy for them to get what they want. Um, a few more examples of that include guilt, complaining, comparing, lying, denying, blaming, mind games, so forth. And I think we also touched on the guilt part. So this is where, for instance, someone might ask money from a loved one to say, hey, I need to cover my rent, I need to pay for this and that, I need groceries. And as a parent, or as, a loved one of that, person, or we can refer that person as an addict in this instant, is that you you will feel that, you present in this person's life, and they are struggling, they need your help in this instant. And the conversation will be around that, when I had this and that, I was always there for you, I did that for you, I was always there for you when this was happening in your life. So they are taking everything away from them, and, putting it to you, so that you can feel guilty to say, Ishia, but this person, they do have a point, they were there when I was struggling, and now I can't even assist them financially. So that is like guilt trapping. And there's complaining. In complaining, it's more of, they get to raise, valid points, or rather, they get to raise, things that are believable but untrue. To say, yeah.
Or Chris, they'll make it worse than what it seems. They'll make it seem worse than what it is. Yeah.
Thanks, CJ. Yeah, and when you getting to sit in that emotional state, you get to feel that, yeah, but this person, have complained about valid things, but the reality is they just want you to feel that, so that you can just easily give in. Um, So, but I think we will discuss. Sorry.
No, I think it's so great that you put in there comparing, we find it so much with families when it's a sibling situation, or if it's, you've done all of this for one person and yet you can't assist me when I really need your help, when I'm in a very dire situation. Again, what Chris was saying, they take all the responsibility, the need for them to be a functional human, and put it on you to make it your problem, to make it your responsibility. I think comparing, when it just jumped out at me that happens so often, but you were able to do this for this person and help your friend, but I'm your husband, I'm your child, I'm your, and it all of them work together, the guilt, the complaining, the comparing, and it all boils down to manipulation. Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, CJ. And maybe just to touch on, the mind games as well. This is quite a tricky one, because at some point you will get to feel like Christian is saying that, they get to compare that, but for that one, you've done this, you did that, but for me, you can even do like the basic thing. And this is where now the mind games gets, sort of involved as well, because you'll be after, that certain conversation or whatever it unfolded, you get to be sitting there thinking that you're the one who's losing your mind, you're the one who's crazy, because you can't even balance, the support to your children or your partner or whatever relationship that could be. So you get to be stuck in that mind to say what is the best thing to do in this. um, yeah. So signs of manipulation. Manipulation can happen in many forms. In fact, acting kind can be a form of manipulation, depending on the intent on the intention. Um, so people who manipulate have common traits that you can look for. So so I just want to touch quickly on the of kind, when I think this is also common, because like we discussed earlier, that the most important thing for them is to put you in a spot where you just sitting with these emotions of saying that, my son has, this weekend has been behaving, he has been helping in the house, he's doing well at school, and, there's no really complaining. And by doing so, they've got intentions to say, if they get to be appearing as kind, as, remorse, it could be remorseful as well. If they get to appear in a point where you can see that they're putting some efforts in changing or getting better, you can easily give in, because it comes as a sense of you will be thinking you just giving them a reward for that kind of behavior. So common traits that
Chris,
you
if I if I could pause you there, I'm getting a few chat in the chat here about the volume. I don't know if you are able. Sorry, I don't know. Please mute yourself, whoever it is. I don't know if you're able to. I don't know if it's on your side. I'm not sure.
Yeah. How's that? Am I audible now?
I think it might be better.
Much better, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So these include, the traits that you can look for, because, the manipulator, they know your weaknesses and how to exploit them. So in terms of weaknesses, CJ, we've got a background sign there, sound, sorry. Okay, thank you. So in terms of weaknesses and how to exploit them. So weaknesses might not necessarily refer to, things that maybe you struggle with. So I can use, the the reward after maybe you've seen that, okay, your loved one has been, being kind and responsible and things like that, they get to appear as if they are, progressing to change. So that could be one of, your weaknesses, to say once they've acted in a certain way, you feel the need that, they need a reward for that. Maybe you can give them a weekend pass, you can give them money, you can get more involved in contributing or assisting them. And that's how they get to express that, because they know that if I get to act in a certain way, if I get to act in a kind way, remorseful way, uh, my mom would now reward me to that. If I ask for money, she would easily give it. So that's how they get to exploit that. And also, they tend to use your insecurities against you. So every person would have some sort of, insecurities. Let's take, for instance, in a relationship, or rather a romantic relationship with your husband or your partner, whatever the case might be. So it could be, when you point out to say, hey, I don't like the fact that maybe you would go out and then come back late at night, because there's just so many things that happens there. There's crime, there's, the outside it's not safe, and you coming in a sense that it's just you showing some, or caring for them. And that can also appear as an insecurity, to say maybe you are, engaging with other people, in terms of, maybe you might be seeing other ladies or other men out there. And at that point, you just, voicing out or expressing how you feel about them, spending the night out or things like that. And this can be used against you, because they know that it appears as insecurity. And once you mention that, hey, it's not even about, you engaging with others, or, you might be cheating or whatever, but I'm just concerned about your well-being, your safety when you're out there. And they know that, because it appears to be insecure, if they mention that, to say, no, the problem is not my drinking, the problem is not my addiction, you just insecure, because the last time when we had maybe a conversation around this, or when we had an argument, you mentioned that one of the reasons is that I'm seeing other people on the outside. So they get to use that as well. And the other thing is, they convince you to give up something important to you, to make you more dependent on them. So we understand that, relationships are not always one-sided. There is always efforts from both parties. But in this instant, someone can, say, okay, I'm asking to, go out this weekend. But, to avoid what happened the last time, you not knowing about my whereabouts or things like that, I will ask you maybe to check my car, or to phone me every 30 minutes or things like that. So by doing so, they are giving something important to you, so that you can hold on to that, to say, okay, this person actually cares. They understand why I'm so concerned about them going out at night or things like that. And to them, they give you this sense of, control, to say, if you are part of it, then you shouldn't see it as a problem. You shouldn't mention it to them that their drinking is not so great. It is actually causing harm to you. If they succeed in their manipulation, they will continue to do so until you get out of the situation. Because the reality is, most of the time, they get to succeed, because it's difficult to pinpoint that, what, this is actually manipulation, because they use all these tactics or traits, that for you, it appears as if they are there, they are part of the relationship, but you don't get to see it as manipulation, or someone can just dismiss that as relationships are normal. um, Problems are expected to be there in relationships. um, a manipulator will try to bring you out of your comfort zone and places that you are familiar with to have an advantage over you. This can be in any place that the manipulator feels ownership or in control. So because I think we did touch on it earlier that addicts and alcoholics are not stupid people. They get to see and to say that, okay, if X is on their comfort zone, I can't get what I actually need. I can't get that because they will get to see that they are being manipulated. So they would want to bring you out of that zone. They would want to put you where they want, to easily pinpoint, or, um, where they can get to use their own tactics to get what they want, because it's about that. There's always a reward for them. They know that if they put you to a place where um, you are not so comfortable, it's easy for them to pinpoint your mistakes, to say, but you saying all these things, but you did this and that. And by doing so, you get to move away from focusing into what they are actually causing to you.
I think just to add on to that, Chris, I think this is almost a process that they undergo. If we look at manipulation as a process that they use, and something that grows, they'll start off, maybe it wasn't as I think I'm adding this in because I think it also sounds quite sinister. It sounds like we're saying that this kind of behavior is just all the manipulator and all sorts of things. But when we talk about it like this, they learned over time that if I use your insecurities against you, and if I you be able to put you in a space where you can't say no to me, I will succeed in my venture, and I'll get what I want at the end of it. So the process builds because they have evidence that backs up their plan. Their plan is to get money so that they can go drink, so that they can go use, etc., or just get you to cover up for them so that they don't feel a certain consequence that they might have, get you to bail them out, get you to lie for them. It's a process that builds over time, where your insecurities are used against you. They are able to develop. It's almost like working a muscle. It's something that they do consistently and over time. It doesn't just happen that they are master manipulators. Addicts build up, they work this muscle in a way that they know which buttons to press that will get you to do something, or will get you in a certain space, and use that, and use the way that the process unfolds in your relationship, in all their relationships. So it doesn't just happen overnight that this is, they can become master manipulators. It is a process. And I think part of it is also getting real with ourselves about how much of that we've also enabled, how much of that we've also haven't been able to see. And sometimes, like I'm saying, I use the term master manipulator. Sometimes we can't see it. We think that they're being genuine in their asking for help, or we think that they're being, they're apologizing, they're doing all the things that they know will butter me up. And it's really, really difficult to see it sometimes. But that's why I think when Chris went over the signs, and I think those were just a few of them. I'm sure many of you have experiences of this, and we'd really love to hear what some of these examples are in just a bit. But there's so many ways that we can ignore, we're not privy to them. I just wanted to add that in there, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. And I think you raised a very valid point that this is a process, and with that, it's difficult even for you, like you said, Kristen, that it's difficult to pinpoint because this is like a build up. It's something that you might not be paying attention to. And when, that piles up already when you are in there, it's difficult to see that you actually been getting, manipulated. So just to
Mm.
quickly run through some of the specific signs. Um, so this is where, the addict or alcoholic will use manipulation of facts. These are, a manipulator will lie to you, they will make excuses, they will blame you or strategically share facts about them and withhold other truths. In doing this, they feel they are gaining power over you and gaining intellectual superiority. And obviously, this is, more common as well. Uh, that, there will be lies, they would withhold some of, the important aspects about, the truth, so that, oh, they get to feel the sense of control towards you. And now that you won't be knowing all the facts, it's easy for them to just play around with what, they know, because they have the right things to say. We've got exaggeration and generalization. So manipulators will generalize, they will exaggerate. They may say things like, no, no one has ever loved me. They use vague accusations to make it harder to see the holes in their arguments. And I think we did touch on, something about complaining or blaming, comparing. This is, also more similar to that, because once, for instance, if your child get to tell you that no one has ever loved me, that is something that you get to stuck with, because with these accusations, you start to question your parenting, that maybe they are telling the truth, maybe you've never been there for them, and they know that once they get to use this, it's easy for them to get what they want. It's easy even for you as a parent to give in, which is sort of enabling. We've also got cruel humor. So this tactic is used by manipulators. It's meant to poke at your weaknesses. I think we did touch on weaknesses earlier, and make you feel insecure by making you look bad. They feel some sense of psychological superiority, because I think the word superiority is popping up more often. And this is basically, the control that we were talking about earlier. We've got gaslighting. So this tactic is used by the manipulator to confuse and make you question your own reality. The manipulation happens when you confront the abuse or lies, and the manipulator tells you that it never happened. This is also something that we discussed earlier, that you would get to think that you're the one who's crazy, you're the one who's losing your mind, because none of these ever existed. And that is where they want you to be, because they will get to feel superior, because you can't, you're not going to be able to pick up, the abuse, the lies, all these things. We've got manipulation of circumstances. So this strategy may be simple as someone insisting you to meet them in their home, office, or where they feel most powerful. Or they may create a constraint such as a deadline to try and pressure you into making their preferred decision. And yeah, sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with this one, because I think this is such a common one that comes up, when it's like, okay, but I really need you to send me this money by 4 o'clock today, because otherwise I'm gonna, people are gonna come looking for me. Or I think that's, probably a worst case scenario. But I do think that, I'll come fetch it from you, because then they're imposing in your personal boundaries, in your home situation, or whatever the case is. Like, don't worry, I'll come to you, I'll come fetch the money, or we can meet here, so that wherever that environment is, they feel bad that you have to be there. Or that pressure around it. You might have been thinking, okay, maybe this time I'm not going to help them. I'm not going to enable them in this way anymore. But because they put a certain level of pressure over the circumstances of the help, not just asking you for help, but controlling how you give the help, is also a very sneaky tool that is used often and can't be identified as manipulation. Sorry, Chris, go for it.
No, thanks, Christiane. And I think this is also something that we touched on earlier, that, they take you out of your comfort zone, because that way they've got like a sort of, control over what they need. They know that if you are out of your comfort zone, it's easy for them to use all these tactics to get what they want from you. And then we've got the common one as well, passive aggression. The manipulator does not voice negative feelings towards problems with the person. Instead, they find indirect ways to express their anger and undermine the other person. Emotional manipulators will agree to a project or action, then they seek passive aggressive ways to let the other person know that they don't really want to be doing it. So for instance, in this regard, you might ask, a loved one to say, hey, are you able to assist me with a certain project? Maybe you've got a function to, carry over the weekend at home or whatever. And for them, they are not going to say, no, I'm not going to be able to do it, or I'm not going to do it. They will basically agree to it, but they will get to be passive. They will find other ways to show you that they don't actually want to do it, but they are just doing it for the sake of, just doing it. And once you get to feel bad about that, you might be in a position where you are easily giving in whatever that they would want to say. Yeah, but this person assisted me over the weekend, and you might want to sort of reward that. They may use specific passive aggressive techniques, such as intentional mistakes and procrastination. They might complain about being underappreciated or somehow cheated out of something. And there's resentment, there's covert opposition. People can be passive aggressive for many reasons that are not intended to manipulate. But with chronic or manipulators or master manipulators, they will use this tactic to make you feel guilty and give backhanded compliments. They are doing this to show anger without being directly angry, making you feel confused. We also have social and emotional bullying. Bullies don't always use physical violence. Constant criticism, raised voices, and threats are forms of emotional bullying. Social bullying can take the form of rumor spreading or deliberate exclusion. Other form can be intellectual bullying, whereby the manipulator tries to claim the role of the subject matter expert, making another person feel inadequate and dependent on them for information. Other form of manipulation is bureaucratic, where the manipulator uses red tape laws, procedures, or paperwork to overwhelm someone or subvert their goals. So I think this is also more common in active addiction, because you'll be sitting there pointing out to say, your behavior is unacceptable, your using is or drinking is actually affecting me as a parent, as a partner. When you get to behave like this, I feel this way, I get to suffer harm, and I have to constantly worry about your whereabouts. And someone might just respond to that to say, but I'm over 18, I'm an adult, I can do my own things. So they start to use the red tape, just to, push you back and to protect their, their addiction. Uh, okay, distortion. Another strategy used by emotional manipulative people is to twist facts or other information needed to accurately assess a situation. In some cases, the manipulator will simply lie or claim ignorance about something. We've also got guilt and sympathy. Many people are highly susceptible to guilt. Some even go as far as punishing themselves about things they feel guilty about. Emotionally manipulative people prey on this vulnerability. They may play the victim or remind you of past favors. They want you to feel a sense of obligation or sympathy that they will make um, them feel more likely to get what they want. So I think this is something that we also briefly discussed earlier. So how can we get to treat manipulation? So manipulation can be hard to identify and admit to when it happens to you. You are not at fault and you may not be able to prevent it. But there are things you can do to reduce the emotional impact of manipulation. And I think this is something that Christine raised earlier, that, when you are in this process of being, manipulated, it's because now it's a process, and the manipulator in this instant, they've gathered all their tools, they've got all their tactics to get you where they were. To get you to that position where they've got control over you. They feel a sense of power. So it's difficult to, identify, and at times even to admit when that happens to you. You might be, because there's just a lot of, these tactics. Because let's say, for instance, someone is using guilt to, manipulate you. So once you are stuck into, guilt and all of that, it's difficult to identify, because you're the one who's in the process. You're the one who's, experiencing this guilt and, lot of things, and they are not stopping. They keep on maybe complaining, comparing, and you just stuck there, trying to figure out that, they might be correct. Maybe I'm not treating them fairly, or maybe I'm not doing enough as a parent. So it's difficult to identify when you are at that position. So below are just ways to, set some strong boundaries in a relationship, because every relationship, yes, it's not a walk in the park. It goes its own, struggles. But I think boundaries are important in any form of relationship. So in this regard, if maybe you are able to identify that maybe you in a position of being manipulated, to communicate in clear and direct, specific ways. Because remember, one of their tactics is to use vague accusation or vague language or whatever. So once you are at that position, you need to communicate, in clear, direct, specific ways to say, hey, I feel if you are out drinking, I would prefer it if you don't speak to me, or you don't come to my place, or you don't phone me, because I don't like it when you shout at me when you are under the influence. So I feel you just need to not come if you've been drinking. And the other thing is understanding when manipulation is not normal and needs to be addressed. So with the disease of addiction, manipulation will never be normal, or in any other relationship for that matter, because it is not a healthy, aspect to be part of a relationship. So once you spot, those small changes, the small behaviors, that each time when this person asks for something, they want what they want and they want it now. So that needs to be addressed right on the spot, because it is not normal. To set boundaries around manipulation and find a way to let the person know that you understand they are manipulating you. and that you don't want to be part of that conversation. So these are just some of, the clear boundaries that you can set to say, hey, I feel that you are manipulating me, and I don't want to be part of that. I don't want that to happen for your well-being and for my well-being as well, because manipulation is not a healthy thing even for the manipulator, because they are not in the reality. But at that time, for them, it is like, a normal thing, because it gets to pleases, or they get to get what they want.
Mm. Just to
Um,
add there, Chris, I
sure.
think it's so important when we're trying to become aware of where we've been manipulated, where we ourselves have maybe manipulated. These kind of tendencies and behaviors do come up in relationships when there are power struggles, when there are, dynamics that feel unbalanced, uneasy, unequal. And I think communication is something that we always are presenting on, talking to each and every one of you about. And I think I just wanted to emphasize that when there is communication, whether it's setting boundaries, whether it's addressing or confronting a manipulative event that has happened, just clear, direct, specific, but also in ways that sometimes we have to address it whether we want to or not. Do you know what I hope I'm making sense to everyone? I think that sometimes we'll let it slide. We'll be like, okay, this happened at this point, but that kind of behavior is also adding to the process. It's adding to their evidence that they're gathering, intentionally or not, that shows that, okay, if I do this, it's okay. No one's gonna address it, set boundaries, come at me. It's nothing is going to happen from it. And I think that for treating it, I think like the heading says, I love that it says that, because it's treatable, it's workable.
Mm.
Communication is always really important. I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. And I think you've raised a very important point there by communication, because they've also, like as you mentioned, that they've gathered their own evidence and they are sort of in their own process. So once you start picking it up and you start paving your way of communication, it is also a healing process for you, because
Mm.
you get to be involved in your own process of getting to the manipulation. Thanks, Kristen, for that. Oh, sorry, I missed something. Oh, okay. Seek out a trusted person who is not under the influence of the manipulator, and ask their advice about, your situation. Uh, because obviously the manipulator in this instant, they are not going to win, if I can use that word, into every relationship or people that maybe are sort of related to you. Some they can get to see them for what they are, but because you are the first contact of that person or that relationship, it's difficult for you to pinpoint it at a certain or on the spot. So seeking out a trusted person that you can easily communicate to, people that are maybe going to be subjective about the whole situation, because you are also in a emotional state whereby you might not be able to pick up some of the things. So being able to identify manipulation is a large part of your solution. If manipulation is coming from a loved one, it can be very difficult to seek help, but manipulation can take a toll on your own emotional well-being. So it's important that you find a safe way out of the situation. Okay. That will be the end of our presentation. I think, Kristen.
That's the end. Please, if there's any questions or anyone who wants to share on maybe an experience. I know we don't have a lot of time, but um whoever has anything. I see here, thanks. This was very revealing and has managed to teach me how to navigate this. That's amazing.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, any comments, or maybe things that you just want to point out, throughout the presentation? Maybe you didn't understand something, or you just want to add, some of your experiences. Okay, there's no questions yet, eh?
Nothing yet.
Oh, okay.
And we give them a few more minutes to see.
Okay, yeah, so I also just want to touch on something that, just came up to my mind now, that there's another form of, or rather tactics that manipulators will use. And I think this is isolating and maybe threatening to self-harm, because it is quite common as well that, once they realize that, they're not getting what they want, they're not getting their way, maybe into um, getting the money to buy their substances or to drink, they might threaten with or threaten with self-harm. And now, because self-harming or suicide or whatever, it is not something that one can take lightly. It is quite a huge threat, right? And it's easy for someone to actually get to separate whether, they really want to commit suicide or they want to self-harm, because it's not something that you can say, no, I'll just wait and see when it happens. But it is also a common tactic that they will use to say, okay, you don't want to give me this, it means I will just, go and commit suicide. And as a loved one, you might not, or you wouldn't want that to happen. So it's easy for you to give in what they want. Um, but I think if something like that gets to happen, I think seeking treatment for them or encouraging them to seek treatment will be the best thing. Because you also in that position, you might not be able to talk them out of those ideas, or because it's difficult. It's not something that you can pinpoint if they're just making it up or if it's there. So I just wanted to add that.
So, Chris, I think that is a huge one that comes up. And I think it is one of the worst ones, I think, because like you say, as a loved one, I can't, maybe they've threatened before to do whatever else, steal something, take something, leave forever and never come back. But this is always such a sensitive topic. Parents, spouses, just family members, loved ones have come and said, okay, now they've threatened this, what do I do? And the reality is that, yes, you're obviously more tempted to enable, to give them what they want, to come in and save them. And it's so much harder to say, okay, that is what you've threatened. And if I can take you seriously, my obligation is to call, medical assistance, get an ambulance, get them there. And oftentimes you'll find that dilutes the situation, because they don't really want to harm themselves. They just want to get what they want out of the situation. But you'll find that when you take it seriously, or when you do that, not buckle to what they've asked for, but take their threat seriously, get medical assistance, call their counselor, whatever it is, you'll find that they back down a little bit, and they like, okay, I can't use this avenue to manipulate them anymore. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah,
huge
thanks, Kristen. And I think you said it nicely, that once you act on that. Once you seek medical assistance, for instance, then you somehow, have taken away that, route to them, because they will realize that, okay, this doesn't work. When I pull up, with uh, this happens, but not
Mm.
actually getting what I want.